Friends. Good day, members of the Clerisy. Good day. Let's get all of our daylight saving time jokes out of the way. Daylight saving, not savings. Daylight saving. First question. What brought us to daylight saving? What was the event? What was it? Tell me right now, why do we have daylight saving? And I'm going to wait until the first person gets the wrong answer. The myth. This is what you say all the time. This is what you do. I'm sick. Take vitamin C. Well, what's the reason? Why do we have daylight saving? I'm waiting. There's a bit of a delay here. Trains. Don't know what that means, but thank you, Bernard. What's the reason? What is the mythical reason for this? Shall we go through this? Anyone? Why do we have daylight saving? I'm waiting for this. Commerce. A little vague. Don't know what that means. Farming. Close. I like these generic things. Stuff. Things. These are just your farming. Trains. Locomotion. Why? What precisely about farming? You're onto something there. This is the myth. What was it? What was the myth? To save energy and make better use of daylight? Closer. Very good. The answer is no. That has nothing to do with farming. The Germans started it during World War I to save on coal production. We followed, I think, in 1918, like the year later. I think it's 17. That was it. Germans, World War I. That's it. We have been debating this every year as long as I can remember. We have been debating this every single year. Every year. Every single year we have been debating this. And nobody can tell you why. But they think they heard something, and nobody will research this. It's right there. It's right in front of you. It's available. I've been going immediately yesterday and today, reminding people to set their clocks back because people just fall for this, and they have to say, no, it's a spring forward, fall back, and they go crazy. No, I'm pretty sure it's no, you're wrong. They have to. It's like, Mrs. Canfield. Yes, Margaret. So that's that. Okay. Next, anybody want to talk about the Silicon Valley Bank collapse? Anyone want to talk about the Silicon Valley Bank collapse? Anyone interested in that? Anybody have any clue as to the Silicon? Have you heard any of the theoretical reasons for this, the various analyses? Have you heard these? Incredible. What I suggest to you is that you follow not necessarily what people say, but listen to the theme of what is being said. It's the same story depending upon who is selected to discuss it in the first place. Now, does that make any sense to you? Let me see if I can explain this to you again. Let me see if I can explain this. The people who are on business shows, the people that you hear providing their various reasons for this, those folks who are opining and the like, these individuals are, dare I say, put there specifically to, what's the word? They're there to promote themselves as media analysts. That's what they're there for. They're not going to tell you anything that would hurt their bottom line. They're there to make you think that they know what they're talking about. So when you see them on TV or whatever it is, remember why they are there. Number two, there are some people who are there to be doomsayers. Oh, yes. Doomsayers. They love that. They love to be there to frighten, to scare, to bother, to arouse. And you see them online. They're just, this is the end. This is the end of banks. This is the end of crypto. That's this group. Then you have the other groups who are saying, oh, no. No, this is a glitch. This is not the end of the world. So remember, what I'm trying to tell you today is don't listen necessarily to what they say. Listen to which group they are in and compartmentalize, if at all possible, what it is they're trying to say. Does that make any sense to you? Does that make any sense? That's what's more interesting. I don't listen to a word they say. There's always an expert explaining obesity rates, crime, name it, climate change, whatever it is, they're there, and they never do anything ahead of time. They're just there to react. And somebody who has been in the business for a long time, I can tell you that there are some people whose job it is to do nothing but react. That's all. So pay attention. Fear does sell, but also the doomsayers love to go the extra mile. Everything is the end. They don't put anything into context. They don't put anything. They can't figure out how to work this out. Now tonight's the Oscars. Do you remember when the Oscar world meant something? Do you recall? I do. When I was a kid, Bob Hope was the man. It was so elegant. White tie. Then Johnny Carson. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful and beauteous. It was wonderful. Glorious. It was beautiful. I loved it. Loved it beyond anything I could ever even imagine. It was just beautiful. Absolutely. The David Niven routine. I remember when the year that Laurence Olivier received a special Oscar. It was beautiful. Charlie Chaplin, Cary Grant. There was an elegance. There will never be anybody like Cary Grant. There will never be anybody. Best clothes ever. The best. And what was it? Nothing really special. It was the way he carried it, the way they fit. Absolute elegance. We don't have that anymore. We don't have anything even remotely similar to that. There was a time when there was beauty and there was style and panache. It's over. It's over. It's done. Thank God, at least in the world of cuisine, people are always trying to find new ways to kind of jazz up food and to make it seem elegant. That's kind of good. Music, I think, is in some respects, it's benefited. But as far as film, no. We have lost. I hate to say this. In essence, it's this weird concept again of almost like this trying to recalibrate our world. It's like the Durkheim constant. We kind of define deviancy down. We define the level of class or panache down to reflect how horrible it is in our world. And I'm not trying to be a doomsayer myself, but it is gone. It is just gone. I happen to hear somebody still trying to define and parse the Chris Rock special. And they missed the point altogether, but it's a number of people who have no frame of reference, who are thinking the word hilarious. This word means nothing. Hilarious. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. Was it really hilarious? Yes, it was hilarious. Okay, that has become a word for everything. That's just like amazing or awesome. It doesn't mean anything whatsoever. So tonight, I'm not going to be watching Mrs. L. Normally will be paying attention, maybe a little bit about kind of when the runway was important, when Joan Rivers did it, when people cared about what you wore. And I was looking at a piece from 1979, and oh God, it was just. And I don't think I'm necessarily looking back. I'm not looking back. I'm not being nostalgic. There's some things I don't want to go back to. Not all of the movies were that great, but that particular style it was. There's no doubt about that at all. So that's that. There's so much to say. I did a whole slew on my private channel at lionelmedia.com. Oh my God. I did a very brutal review of Chris Rock. I don't do it here. I talk about other things too, how we tend to regurgitate the same. There's like 4 stories that are over and over. And again, if I were to explain to somebody from another planet, I'm saying, well, watch what happens right now. These people really aren't doing anything. They're not doing anything at all but recycling the same story. Because people really don't want to get into it. Because there's no degree of depth. Even one of the most popular shows right now, when a lot of the programs are shorts. Because a 1 minute, 2 minute segment is too long. We need a short. And they're doing these food, instructionals, and they're throwing down the meat. Have you seen these? And it's even that's fast. They're not really. It's really nothing to it. At least people are talking about cooking. That's great. But you see where we're going. So starting off where I began, the worst coverage of SVB. Remember Samuel Bankman-Fried, SBF? Remember that? That's forgotten. The number one issue, the number one that we are woefully and pathetically behind is the notion of economics, not investing, economics. What does this mean? What's the real... Explain the essence of this. What does it mean? Truly. Is anything safe? Now, again, on my private channel, I have not theories, sort of hypotheses as to who benefits, who doesn't, and how instability in the markets are almost like the free radicals of our world. The free radicals. Instability. It's why a free radical is so interesting. A free radical is that beautiful little piece of I guess you want to call it this, it's kind of like an electron that's out there, and it's looking for anything to glom onto. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's like it's this wonderful, they just, what's a word? It just looks for something to pair. And that's what's scary about instability, is that where does it go next? See, that's the scary part. What happens? And in markets and the like, when people start panicking, they go crazy. And that's the problem. And by the way, speaking of free radicals, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Z-Stack. I hope you took yours today because you're going to need it. You're going to need it because, remember, it's always flu season. There's always something floating around. And right now, your body, you may be terrific, and you've got to take this stuff in preparation to build up resistance later on. I like when people say, I'm getting sick right now. I'm going to take vitamin C. Now? What is that going to do? It's too late. It's not going to kill anything. It might help you a little bit, but that's not it. So vitamin C, zinc, D3, which is a miracle, and flavonoids. I saw an article, a piece over the weekend. This is a weekend now with Michael Greger talking about why pigments in fruit, pigments in vegetables, that is the thing that you want. That is the part of this entire system that helps us with antioxidants. It's the plants, their ability to handle bugs and sun and things like that. That's what you want. Greens, bitter, we love that. That's for bugs. That's the endothelial health. So in any event, there it is right now. There's my link. Look at it right here. And if you're listening on a phone later on, you got to hit that more. There it is right now. Z-Stack. Use the code and get 15% off of checkout. At checkout. It makes complete and total sense. Now, let's also talk about, I love to sit back and watch how news is done. I have a very interesting, I think, way of looking at it. Because I don't really listen to what people say. I listen to how much they repeat, the tenor in their voice, the anger, the fear, the whatever it is, and how it tends to be replicated. That's what's critical. How it was replicated and the notion of news and information. Oh God, I find this. I love this story like you can't believe. Let me ask you a very simple question, speaking of the Oscars. I'm asking you to tell me what is still the greatest singular film that you saw. It might not be considered the best by everybody else, but it was life-changing, life-affirming. What is it? What is it? What is that movie? The one, and don't put Fargo or Citizen Kane, because I know you don't believe it. I know you're answering that because you're supposed to say that. Just like people loved it, The Clash. No, you didn't. Well, okay. What's the movie? Because there was something when movies mattered. They don't anymore. Goldie Hawn was on to something. The whole Chris Rock bit about Netflix was missed because there goes, public venues and the like. People don't need to go to a theater. I don't think anybody really cares about it anymore. But what was that movie? What was that movie? And by the way, please, I ask you, I beg you, do not pluralize. Do not pluralize with an apostrophe. If you want to say the Oscars, put the Oscars. Oscar with an S. Just put Oscar with an S. There's no, an apostrophe S. I don't know why you do that. Why do you do that? Apocalypse Now. Zeitgeist? No, you don't mean that. You don't mean that. You say that because you have to say that. And I understand it. You're entitled. It was your birthday. You're old. You're decrepit. You're wizened and hobbled by decrepitude. I understand it. Zeitgeist. Please. That's not what we're talking about. Gone with the Wind. Get out. Now, as a child, Jungle Book. Now, listen, that might be the best answer so far. That is something. That's important. That's important. Grand Canyon. Oh, dear God. Blade Runner. Maybe. All About Eve. Gone with the Wind. The Bishop's Wife. You know what? Now we're at least talking about something. If you think The Bishop's Wife, if that was the movie that changed your life, that zeitgeist. Oh my gosh. The Sorrow and the Pity, please. Godfather 1 and 2 is my answer. Absolutely. Was it the best movie? I don't know what the best is. CS, the Honeyman, says Blazing Saddles. Believe it or not, Blazing Saddles and number 2, Young Frankenstein. Mel Brooks changed our genre. He is what Woody Allen sort of used to be. Maybe he was initially, though he hasn't done it in a while. There are very, very interesting things, these movies. Very, very interesting, what it does to you. And by the way, Blazing Saddles was the producers. I don't think anybody but Mel Brooks could have done it. I don't know if they could have done that anymore. Just like I don't know whether you can have our All in the Family ever again. Night Shift, was a very interesting. Remember that I'm a love broker. Note to self: edible garbage. Michael Keaton, excellent. But you think that is the greatest movie? Now again, let me try to remind you of this. This is the greatest movie. Night Shift was the movie that had the singular most important effect on your life. Are you kidding? Do you know what this is saying about you? Night Shift. How about The Evil and the Dead? Come on, stop it. You're not answering the question. And what's interesting is there's no thinking involved, because you're saying, what movie was the most, it just made had the most effect. And Gone with the Wind, singular in terms of the history of it. Singular. Barney Rubble, what an actor. Absolutely one of my favorite lines. Another great line was from the Pope of Greenwich Village, when he tips the guy in the toll booth off. He goes, "Why'd you do that?" He says, "It's a blanking sentence." I love that line. There's just wonderful lines, wonderful moments. That's all. Jackie Gleason's Nothing in Common. You think Jackie Gleason's Nothing in Common was the greatest movie that had the most effect? You're not listening to what I'm saying. You're just throwing out movies that you liked, which is okay. So it's a free country, but that's not what I said. That's not the purpose of this. This is why people... Now, somebody wrote Rocky. Now, Rocky was... Let me tell you something. That was something to be said. In Philly, they're still doing that. Rocky was... I think they just went too far. He didn't make a penny from that. Or virtually nothing from it. No, in terms of Birth of a Nation, changed everything. Not the best storyline, but it was important in terms of its magnificence, its grandeur, even though the subject matter is less than admirable. Charlie Chaplin, The Tramp, bigger than anything. There was nothing on the planet at the time like that. Gone with the Wind, same thing. It was bigger than anything. Citizen Kane, I think, was later on. I don't think at the time, though he incorporated, Orson Welles did some things that were incredible, and he never lived up to it again. He's like Einstein. Einstein peaked in, 1905, and that was it. I mean, he did some wonderful things, but unified field theory, he never did it. Orson Welles spent the rest of his life trying to get money to raise. He just didn't. Marlon Brando. Let me explain something to you. And you got to take my word for it. In the history of the American, in the stage, acting, Marlon Brando was the Beatles. Marlon Brando was bigger than anything he changed everything. May not sound like much, may not seem like much, but believe me when I tell you that he was bigger than anything. He changed the course of acting. It went from the British school, from that regular... I still think the greatest actor of all time, for my money, pound for pound, is Spencer Tracy. Because just... And I'm not going to go into reasons for it, but he was just perfect. But Marlon Brando... Streetcar Named Desire, it changed everything. Everybody, from that moment on, when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, irrespective of what you feel about the Beatles, that changed everything. The next day, you couldn't find a guitar. Everybody started writing their music. It changed everything. Bob Dylan changed things drastically. Drastically. Marlon Brando, you couldn't touch Marlon Brando. He was it. You could not. It was seismic. And when at the time of The Godfather, he was... They didn't even want him. They had to post a bond, and he had a terrible reputation. Weird, you name it. Everything was great. Remember Last Tango in Paris? Oh my God. The backstory of that, no pun intended, is something I don't want to discuss now, but But whether you like Brando or not, he changed everything. He was it. He was it. Stella Adler, the method, Meisner. In any event, stop right there. I got to mention something to you, which is very serious. And I know you're not maybe going to think about this. With all of this talk about bank runs and people freaking out, just the other day, nobody thought about this. Nobody thought about this. And whenever I bring up the notion about food and food supplies, the same people who said, oh, banks. Same thing with this. Just imagine. It's one thing when you can say, okay, I've got money in there. Let's face it, most of us are not worried about our millions being, I could only speak for me. But food, think about this. PrepareWithLionel.com right now has a deal for you. Listen to me. Go to PrepareWithLionel.com. You get a 3-month emergency food supply kit. 2,000 calories a day, 25-year shelf life, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you know that. Plus, you get a free water filter system, an Alexa Pure water filtration system, a $279 value thrown in, no price. Storage capacity, 2.5 gallons. Can last all day. 2.25 gallons, excuse me. Powered by gravity, no electricity needed. Reduces up to 200 contaminants. And what are the 3 things for life? Energy, food, and water. If ever there was a time for you, right now, to go to preparewithlionel.com, it's now. And a second offer, get a second week food supply at a tremendous price, but you've got to go to preparewithlionel.com. Look at this this water filtration system. Food, water, energy. Can't help you with the energy yet, but the food and the water I can. So let me ask you something. You don't think food shortages, food shutdowns, food cessation is a possibility? You want to dare say that today? I don't think so. Preparewithlionel.com. I mentioned before about the greats, and I will say this. I don't care whether you like them or not, whether you think they were great. One of the greatest performers in our history, pound for pound, bigger than Sinatra, Beatles, Elvis, Bing Crosby. When Bing Crosby was at his height, he was on radio, film, and sheet music. He was unbelievable. Nobody could get near him. Nobody. And just because you may not, I wasn't a big Bing Crosby, that doesn't matter. Milton Berle changed the television buying system. Bill Paley changed it. Desi Arnaz from Lucy and Desi was responsible for the television audience, 3-camera shot. There are people in our lifetime who did things that were so important, so huge. Whether you like them or not, it doesn't matter. Howdy Doody, Buffalo Bob, everybody, Davy Crockett, the whole Fess Parker thing. This was a generation. There were things that I look at now as a historian, which I kind of am, sort of. I look at things for what they are worth. I can't explain to somebody Motown, tempered with Philadelphia sound later on there. But Motown, nothing like that. Ed Sullivan. What do we have today? Nothing like that. It's all spread out. And that's why it's so difficult for people to understand that they have to, if they do enjoy a moment of big, it's very tough. I was listening to Chris Rock and some of his more celebrated routines. I'm not going to name them per se, but some of them were absolutely brilliant. And yet, as I'm listening, everybody's trying to expurgate and Baudelarize and remove certain words that we all agree are not very nice. And it destroyed everything, destroyed the the tenor of it. There was a great piece on Mad TV where they do The Sopranos, but cleaned up for A&E, and they have all the improper words removed, edited, and it's so funny, and it makes the point. It makes the point. Chris Rock made points that were genius, but here's the interesting thing. Always watch when an entertainer is on the rise. That's when they're the best. Because when they're breaking through. And that's when they're the most creative and the most innovative and the most bold and the most dangerous. It's when they're moving up. It's great. And then they hit the top. And here's what happens. When they're at the top of the game, especially with something as subjective as comedy, because sports, if you can hit home runs and run the bases, I guess, you can be 80 years old. There's no end to it. You normally aren't, but they don't care. As long as you produce, and as long as there is a metric that we can point to, namely home runs and RBIs and all that, you're fine. It's different when you've been around for a while. Here he comes. You know, and they say, oh boy, here's another George Carlin moment. Okay. And then maybe sometimes you think, oh, whatever. By the way, the thing that changed George Carlin, that got his attention when he really got to be stale, Rick Moranis on SCTV did a takeoff of George Carlin, and it got to him, and it was so perfect. It just nailed what he was doing, playing with words, and he became a parody of himself. Towards the end, I respectfully submit George Carlin was not funny. He was a philosopher. He was very serious. His anecdotal, just his history was more interesting than anything else. The act itself, we habituate sometimes, and it's true. Speaking of which, this is something that I do. I don't know if you can do this. I separate the star's ability to perform with their personal life. Bill Cosby is a despicable human being, but his comedy was perfect. His stories were perfect. Perfection. What he did, what the Cosby Show did, and whatever, you cannot take that away from him. His personal life has nothing to do with his professional. Just like there are people who are wonderful, wonderful humanitarians and human beings who are lousy performers. I love when somebody gets it right. And when I was in high school and George Carlin came along, we loved him. We loved him. It was, everybody was doing the routines. Everybody was doing the 7 dirty words, and we loved to repeat things. We would, for no particular reason, say that to all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onion on a sesame seed bun. For whatever reason, everybody thought that was cool. Can you say that? Yes, I can say that. And he was one, to me, in my humble opinion, IMHO, as the kids say, the greatest comedy album that to this day is perfection, even though the individual may not be somebody, forget it, is Robert Klein, Child of the 50s. Greatest album ever. Ever. Who was responsible for this? Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart was the purveyor. They said to him, you can't do a comedy act on an album. I think it was CBS. They said, you can't do this. Biggest selling thing, Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart. Everybody. Andy Griffith, dear God, facing the crowd. The foot, and they called it football, and the mama, and he's on the phone. Who did that first? Georgie Jessel. Somebody mentioned Noah and the ark. Noah, right. Noah, I want you to build an ark. What's an ark? It's going to be 40 cubits, but what's a cubit? It's brilliant. The timing, the story. He had just done it. You could tell he took it out and he worked it and he knew how it. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Remember what Bill Cosby did? I Spy. was huge. And let me tell you something else who was so important, not only in terms of music, but in many respects, Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, on his ABC show, he had Chris Christopherson, Bob Dylan. These were people that you know now, but he went out of his way. Who was it Dean Martin? Who was it who had on Nat King Cole? I think it was Ed Sullivan, Nat King Cole, the Mills brothers. You didn't see black folks on TV until somebody said, they're great. Little things which don't seem like much now were enormous then. What's the big stuff that's happening now? Nothing. What's happening now, many would respect, is what's not being allowed versus what's allowed. But that's perhaps another story. Alan Sherman. Hello, mother. Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Granada. Everybody was into Alan Sherman. Everybody was Alan Sherman was the biggest. It was huge. Huge. And again, people at the time, it doesn't mean you like them. It doesn't mean you care for them. It's just, I watch stuff now, I'm thinking, how did anybody think Milton Berle was funny? I don't. There was a song I love called Keith Barber, Echo Park. One of the most beautiful songs. I saw him do a rendition of this that is so corny, with a kid at a playground and an old man who's staring. It's like, what did you do? Who put this together? Dear God. I was watching Tony Bennett over the weekend. Tony Bennett, by the way, who, as a young man, was losing his hair, and then he's still alive, he's still with us, though he's seen better days, but bless his heart, he's a tremendous singer. But later on, he had a toupee that was growing, like Carl Perkins, that was gray. As long as I live, I will spend the rest of my life trying to explain to you. A gray toupee, artificial hair that ages, cracks me up like you cannot believe. Okay? Cracks me up. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Let's talk about other stuff too. Notice how we're not talking? We're talking about things that can never happen. I'm telling you right now, EMP shield. EMP shield, look at this link. Electromagnetic pulses. Is he talking about that again? Yeah. And do you know what happens if an electromagnetic pulse hits us? That's it. It's over. This is one where you've got to spend just 5 seconds, reading the literature. You will love it. In terms of what you will know, I should say. It's very scary. It's very, 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 very scary stuff, no matter what you say. But electromagnetic pulse has been, well, put it this way, the threats of it are realer than ever. And right now there's a veteran-owned company in the Midwest called EMP Shield. And this technology, which prevents your home and vehicle from being fried. Notice my noise? That's the sound. And this technology has been tested at the Keystone Compliance, which is a military certified facility, and is listed by the Department of Homeland Security. And not only does it protect your home and your vehicle, but your generator, your solar system, your ham radio, your RV, and much, much more. Do yourself a favor. Prevent the madness. Go right now and get EMP Shield using this link right here. Right there. Okay? Now, I don't want to say by any stretch of the imagination that we don't have good shows today or good films or whatever. I think we're going to be seeing things that are different. We may not see a full-fledged, big ticket movie extravaganza, but that doesn't mean the music today is better. There is so much great stuff that you can imagine. Did you ever see Norman's rare guitar on is it Norm's? It's out of California. They've got Eric Idle singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, playing guitars in this great, I love guitar store. Oh my God. But this is terrific. And it's just a music store, and he has these great musicians. Joe Bonamassa plays, and it's great. And the natural nature of it is so beautiful. I saw something today that made me cry. There's a 94-year-old woman in Italy, Nonna Franca, Italian woman, grandmother named Franca. She's 94, and this jazz band came in and played in her bedroom, and she's crying. It's just the most beautiful thing in the world. Most beautiful thing in the world. That means something. The level of entertainment, the level of information and data now is so good. Don't kid yourself. I don't want to go back to Joey Bishop. I don't want to go back to that. That's okay. It was all right. But I appreciate it. And I understand how great it was and how it was a precursor to this. But I don't want to go back to this. I want to see what's next. And I want everywhere for people to be able to learn. I hope there's more comedy clubs. I hope there's more music venues. People need to get out to play in front of people. They need to practice. You've got to get in front of people. And unfortunately, I think there are more and more people who are not going out. They want to stay home. And that's not good, because there's something about live performances, both by watching it live in front of you, but also being a part of the crowd. And when you are in a Broadway theater, Mark Rylance, Jerusalem, is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Never seen anything even a little close to that. And to see it in front of you, no. No, there is, no. And I hope that never goes away. And I hope you are able to see an actual real Broadway, I hope the essence of Broadway, the Broadway houses. It's amazing how you can, during intermission, go across the street, get a drink, come back. Be surprised how fast you can. There's nothing like seeing that. Gallagher's on 52nd Street. They come over and then, the bar's packed and the bar's empty. Just to watch that. That's who we are. And I hope we never, ever lose that. Because politics aside, the thing that makes us culturally hip, and by the way, performance has been with us since the Agora, since the Coliseum and all of that great stuff. I'm missing something. I was supposed to tell you something else, and I've forgotten. Of course. Please. MyPillow.com. Promo code Lionel. MyPillow. There it is. Have you gotten that yet? I love these people. You know why? Because they support us. It's a very, very simple thing. And I'm looking at it right now, and my favorite is this new 2.0. They've got it right now. This is all new MyPillow 2.0. Buy one, get one free. I think you get two for half price, but it doesn't really matter. Buy one, get one free. And there it is. Look at the options. You get a king or a queen. You get the option of you can get all the fill level. For example, you can have the fill levels. You know him, right? Fill level. The hell of a guy. You get the free gift by going to mypillow.com. Promo code Lionel. Promo code Lionel. Promo code Lionel. MyPillow.com. Promo code Lionel. Have I made that clear? Okay. What was I saying? Yes. Here we go. 800-645-4965 is the number. I was up very early. Well, obviously this morning because of the change. I'm listening and I'm ensconced in my pillow. I'm thinking, isn't that something? How that changes? Just that one little, very simple thing. This thing you put your head on. It's very simple. And that's one thing that somebody immediately figured out. If you go like this, you sleep better. Yeah. I like design genius. And the pillow is it. MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel. My friends, I'm so afraid that we're going to lose not only our culture, but our prior culture. I want to know more about hip-hop and rap, and I want to learn more about classical music and opera. A lot of things I'm not as familiar with as I wish I could be, because they're so necessary and so important and so critical for all of us, obviously. And it is incumbent upon you as a human. I'm serious. Forget politics aside. to become as immersed in aesthetics as much as possible. I mean it. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's absolutely true. Anyway, I hope you got a big plan today. Big plans for everybody. By the way, Dom DeLuise, one of the funniest. He did a show. He did a movie called, not Up in Smoke. That was Cheech and Chong. But it was he played. It was from Miami, where he plays. He is laughing to the point of crying, and he plays an undercover cop, and they're smoking a joint, and he has to buy this, and he's trying his best to simulate the use of it, but anyway, he apparently partakes. And Dom DeLuise, you can go through it. I forget the name of it. Goes into, he is laughing. It is one of the most joyous things in the world to see him laugh. He laughs, he cries. His crying is beautiful. That's why the movie Fatso I love. Fatso. With Dom DeLuise, Anne Bancroft, the Buffalato brothers, Oscar Lapidus, Ron Carey. Beautiful movie. Beautiful. He ate the Oni. One of the greatest lines in American cinema. He ate the Oni. All right, enough. I'm rambling. You have a great and glorious day. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do and appear to do. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. You're very kind. You're very courteous. You're very beautiful, because you are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You are so beautiful to me. See you tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel, 9 a.m. with clocks adjusted, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.